The gradual effect of globalizing textile manufacture has been to disconnect us from the knowledge of what we are wearing. The consequence, when it comes to laundry, is a baffling array of laundering recommendations, and increasingly, dry cleaning is recommended to cover all bases. I want to recommend you to ignore all dry cleaning labels. You will save a lot of money, and you and your textiles will not suffer from the harmful chemicals that are used. I'm going to show you in this tutorial how to wash your wall hanging, but these instructions apply also to hand washing other delicates, and I will be discussing later how to protect wool from moth damage. Wool uniquely needs very little washing as it wears clean. A wall hanging can hang for years or even decades before it may benefit from washing. This wall hanging was made many years ago, probably about 10 years ago. Doesn't really need a wash, but I'm doing this just to show you that it's possible. This is just over 1 metre square, so you need a good space like this, a wet space. I've got a container that it fits into quite easily, so I can just give it a good squeeze in here in the water. So first of all, I'm going to fill my container with hand hot water. I'm just going to put a couple of capfuls of laundry liquid. It's Ecova. Delicates for delicates. But actually, you know, very often I just use washing up liquid or soap powder. I'm not really too fussy about it. So I'm giving it a bit of friction, which if I was to go on and on doing this, it would make the felt shrink slightly and it would strengthen it. But I don't do it, I don't think there's much of a need to do that too much. You can see the water's a little bit brown, so it's had a few years of dust landing on it. So this is going to make it look really nice. So I'm now just going to tip this into the sink. I'll let the water drain away. The best thing to do is to let this drain for a little while, because it's actually pretty hard on your hands if you're going to squeeze. But just leave it for 10 minutes or so to drain away as much water as possible, and then you can come back and rinse it. So I've got nice clean rinse water, hand hot, and I'm just going to put the wall hanging back in here and give it another good squeeze to get the soap out really this time. It's coming out fairly clean now. I mean, if it's really dirty, then give it a couple of rinses. But I think this is fine. There we are. So I'm going to take that out and let that drain on the draining board. Leave it for perhaps a half an hour on the draining board, unless I do the spin drying in my little spin dryer. I often see these simple single tub spin dryers in recycling centres. You should pay no more than £20 for one. And if you're a spinner or do a lot of hand washing, then these machines are invaluable. But if you have off-grid tendencies, then an alternative might be an old-fashioned mangle. But make sure it functions properly before you fall for a second-hand or antique version. But today I'm going to use a big old towel to squeeze out the moisture. a lot of stroking. It's like your hands become an iron to iron it flat. And there's a lot of puckers around the edge, but you can actually really sort of smooth them out, just pulling gently. Sometimes your hand gets a bit fluffy, so it's just a matter of ironing it out, spreading it out gently, pushing it into the right directions, standing back, looking, making sure that it's the shape it was before. And actually it's looking really nice. It comes up so nicely. Just a nice gentle wash. The main thing is to try and get these little puckers out, and you can manipulate it quite a lot, the felt, on the floor, and let it dry there. It's summer at the moment, we're in a heat wave, so it'll be fairly quick actually, probably a day. Whilst it's drying, I'm checking any other areas that are a little loose. Perhaps they've been brushed against too many times and become a bit shabby. This is also a good moment to do any repairs, and I've spotted moth hole here. And moth is inevitable, and I have a studio full of wool and the moths love it, but I'm fairly vigilant. And throughout the year, I will continually sort out dusty corners where I have felt. The moths hate to be disturbed, so hygiene is really important. Just keep vigilant. So this is quite a big moth hole here, and I'm going to repair it by doing some needle felting sideways, so the needles are parallel with the wall hanging, and what they're doing is pushing the fibres across that hole, and you can actually heal a hole. It's like a scar that you're creating, a wound that has been made in the felt, and you're mending that wound. And just by doing this, by directing the needles across the hole from all directions, you can mend that hole both sides. So that's where the hole is.
Chemicals are just counterproductive in the long term, same as herbicides. Pests develop resistance to them, and all that happens is you knock out the predators, and then the pests come back, and then you get secondary pests, then you find out you've got more pests that you didn't know you had to start with. So here I've got storage of textiles, and those cubby holes have just been cleared out and everything taken out and aired, and I've vacuumed inside, behind and underneath, just to make sure that the moths aren't flourishing. This pure wool naturally dyed tapestry is at least 200 years old. It's Norwegian and part of my personal heritage. My mother vigilantly aired it annually and wrote the date of the airing, and I follow that tradition. Although fragile, as far as I know, it has never had moth.